Alright, response video to Professor Anton, who's made a video sort of related to this subject of the meaning of our existence or the context of our existence or whether life is worthwhile. He didn't frame it that way, but he was sort of responding, I think, to the conversation that me and Nick and Conference Report were having. Um, so yeah, he's not really addressing the fundamental issue. And I think the idea of having a conversation about how to live your life as a rat in a maze is okay. It's sort of a useful conversation if you're just going to concede that somehow you can't know what the maze is. You can't possibly climb up, and you can't possibly look around. You can't possibly see anything. You can't even know really that you're in a maze, that you're playing a game. And so, yeah, if you're going to look at life that way and have a conversation with the other rats about how do we do this, what are we doing, how are we doing it? Well, that's a very limited context. That's for a very limited purpose. Like, well, how do we, get the most cash in our suitcases or whatever the thing we're after, the cheese we're chasing or whatever the objective is, and play the game. So how do we get the most pleasure, the best relationship, or how do we feel the most rewarded in our life, or how do we feel the most comfortable, or how do we live our life the most comfortably? And yeah, I would argue that that's a conversation you can have if you're going to accept being an ignorant rat. But I mean, I think we're better than that, And I think even that conversation I would have in such a different way than Conference Report than Professor Anton is having it, because his perspective is just, well, what's this traditional way of living, whether it's as an ignorant primate or whether it's as a half-civilized human or a tribal human or a group human or a mob human or whatever kind of human, a social interacting human, all these different classifications of rat behavior. Well, that tradition doesn't really mean anything because our understanding has evolved. It's changed the world. You can't go back to being stupid. Um, you can't, and you can't for any rational reason, except if you're going to concede that there's no game if you have a brain. I mean, if that's what you're going to concede, is that you have to be retarded to be motivated to play the game. Well, that's a whole nother argument. But anyway, what I want to get to is just the idea that there's two questions here, okay? There's this question, what do you do if you're just a rat in a maze and you don't know you're in a maze? And what do you do if you're a smart rat, you've climbed out of over the top wall, and you've looked around and seen the labyrinth. You've seen what we're in, and you've got a map of it, a pretty good map, and you can kind of see what the mechanisms are and what's driving everything, what's motivating everything. And then meaning becomes a completely different description, because now you can make these value judgments. You can see yourself as just being one of the many rats. You can say something logical like, well, it doesn't really matter what rat gets squashed by that machine over there. I mean, they all are sentient, they all feel, they all have a welfare, they all have a mother that loves them. So yeah, I mean, it's not about which one of us gets killed. It's about how many of us get killed. It's about how many of us suffer, how many of us do this. You understand a whole different kind of math. You understand a whole different kind of an equation when you step out and you start looking at yourself and seeing yourself as just a pawn on this board of chess and how it's going to be played out and whether it should be played out and whether your pawn should maybe just walk off the board at some point and say, I'm not going to be a pawn. I'm not going to be an instrument to be used by these other pieces to get to their cheese. And you would even understand that their cheese is meaningless as any other cheese on the board, that the whole game is just a stupid, silly game. And that's really the question, obviously, I think the conversation is attempting to deal with, is what do educated rats do with this game? What is an educated rat's conclusion going to be when they look at the game? And you're just stepping away from that. You're just ignoring what we understand, pretending we don't understand what a reproducing cell is. We don't understand what chemistry is. We don't understand where we came from. We don't understand those 2 billion years to just create a bunch of tools that enable organisms to survive in a cutthroat game. chasing the same cheese over and over and over again, just playing out this routine, perpetual pawnage. And that's what we've been. I mean, we're just perpetually being pawns in a game that a stupid DNA molecule is playing. And it's not playing it for any good reason. I mean, if there was if we could see something above the maze, when we looked around the maze and we said, okay, well, what's running the game? No, the game runner, there's no game runner. It's a maze made out of crude chemistry, out of crude physics. It's not a game somebody built. It wasn't built by even a kid. You can't even find an A or a B or a C on any of the blocks. There's no evidence it was built by anything with an intelligence for any purpose. It just happens that this is what the structure of the universe fell into. And like some sun circling a black hole in the center of a galaxy, we're just caught in the wind of it. And it appears if it had structure the whole time, and it has no structure. It has no rules, there's no one playing it, there's no one spinning the top. It's just the top spinning. And as it spins, it's spinning with this thing called a sentient being caught in the middle of the whirlpool. That's just being whipped around and thrown around and smashed against the wall and impaled on that tree over there and stuck over there. And there's this huge waste and carnage for what we can see to be this silly adventure where we come into the world and we're hungry, and so we grab some little chewables, and then we're horny, and so we go find something to satisfy that need, and then we get our ego says, well, we got to feel superior, so I got to collect some stuff, so I have more stuff than the other guy, so I can get better, hornyables, better things to rub myself up against. I can attract more goodies to me, and then we lose all sight of any kind of perspective, and we become these selfish, egomaniacal beasts that just go into the world and say, how many heads can I put in my shrunken head suitcase? How many Chinamen can I steal the value of their conscious, sentient, waking hours by obliging them to manipulate their little fingers for 15 hours a day for a fucking bowl of rice. This is an insidious game when you're smart enough to climb up the wall and take a look at the crap that's all over the place, the little instruments of doom and horror. And yeah, you want to say that, no, we got to keep our blinders on. We can't be looking over the walls. We got to just stay focused on the chase. It's all about finding a way to do your chasing in some kind of way that some group of you will have you'll sit at a table and drink some wine and have a conversation about ethics and the niceties. Well, wouldn't it be nice if, the birds had fluffy nests and everything was puffy and fluffy? But, it can't be that way, so never mind. Wouldn't it be nice if humans didn't have to farm those animals and eat them, and the animals go all screamy and stuff? Oh yeah, wouldn't that be? Oh, but yeah, it's too much effort to change our habits. Too much work. Hell with that. But you'll say something like, but we could have national health care, and we could keep people alive in nursing homes for 10 years, and it'll be all fun. And how swell will that be? And they can watch, old soap operas and stuff and drool on themselves, and it'd be so super. And and then we'll be really ethical human beings, because we gave people those nice 10 years in the Babel house, the drool, the institution of droology, the piss your pants, house. And that's an accomplishment. So then you all feel good about yourself, like, oh well, we're ethical humans, because we're making this place a regular Disneyland, except there's shit all over the place and there's no rides, really. So whatever. I don't. There's value in saying, okay, we're stuck here, and so if you're going to concede complete futility in dealing with any of the fundamentals of our existence, the fact that we are the product of a reproducing piece of chemistry, and if you're going to just say, well, I can't even go there, I can't do anything about that. I can't fix 2 billion years. I can't fix the mechanism. I can't change the world. It's way out of my scope. I'm not even going to contemplate that. So just give me a plan for living my little individual life. But okay, as long as that's the context, as long as that you admit that that's what you're doing. You're just saying, I can't, I can't, I can't. You're not saying that isn't the truth. You're just saying, I can't. You can't deal with it. You can't touch it. All right, then yeah, narrow your focus. But even when you narrow your focus, you can't eliminate that knowledge that's connected to the rest of that story, which is that this whole game of chase is completely arbitrary. It doesn't matter whether you're hungry for potato chips or Fritos or cheese doodles or nachos. It's all the same damn thing. It doesn't matter which person is saying, I got my bag of Cheetos, man, I'm happy. It really doesn't matter who gets the bags of Cheetos, doesn't matter who doesn't have the bags of Cheetos. It just matters that there are people with Cheetos and people without Cheetos, that there's people suffering and there's people happy and comfortable, and that we have to maximize that equation. And if we do anything in our lifestyle that puts somebody else or some other sentient being in jeopardy, then we've got to account for that. And I just don't think you're going to come up with an equation. Even if you take away the context of the big picture game, you're still not going to come up with a rational equation that says, okay, let's play the game anyway. Even though we can't control anything, let's just give up control and let's just play the game. You're still going to have an awful hard time coming up with any excuse for being anything less than Gandhi-esque in the way you approach your life. You're going to have to give yourself to the world, to the others, to the system. You're not going to be able to deficit spend, and you're not going to be able to have what you want to have, but you're going to have to keep thinking about, I got to worry about the future. There's more people in the future than there is in the present, so I got to calculate that way. That if I dig a hole and 10 people fall in it in the next 1,000 years, all right, that's the reality, that I killed 10 people because of the hole I left behind, the trap I left behind. And that's got to be the context of the conversation. So I just don't see any real value in just saying, well, human beings have done this in the past. This is how the dumb, ignorant humans of the past, before we knew what chemistry was, really, and physics, well, this is what they did to survive. They got all stoic, and they got all proud, and they ran across fields at each other's with hammers and bashed each other's brains in for a little bit of property. And they all felt great about it, and they all smelt like pigs, but so what? It was a good life. It was a good life because they kept their women under control, and they had a bunch of babies that died, and yeah, it was really just fun for everyone. They had surgeries without fucking anesthesia. I mean, you haven't really lived, until you've had a tumor excised, without anesthesia. That's really living. That's getting the most out of it. The old conscious experience. I mean, you want to be able to scream as loud as you can possibly scream. You want to know that. You want to know that sensation of the loudest possible scream that can come out of your mouth. Because that's just so much fucking goddamn fun. I mean, you're just... you're contriving, okay, whitewashes. These aren't solutions to our dilemma. This isn't giving life meaning. It's a way of running from purpose. It's a way of running from obligation. It's a way of running from responsibility. That's all it is. It's a running from you're running from knowledge and information, running to some sort of stupid bliss. The bliss of ignorance. And it's not even bliss. It's just going to be some sort of acceptance, some kind of stoic acceptance of your miserable, stupid pawn circumstance. Brilliant. I mean, that to me is a pretty lame definition of meaning. So anyway, enough said. Till next time and such.